Very welcome, members, to the January meeting of the Council. So, Fáilte Roí Vilig, our colliery, all councillors and staff, welcome, and members of the public watching in as well, of course. Tonight we're in the Town Hall in Enniskillen, and others have joined by WebEx. So that's where we are, that's our location. And as we commence the meeting, I just want to wish everybody a happy, healthy, safe and peaceful new year. Diana, you had said to me early in December, you neglected to do Christmas wishes, and that's because there's about 10 meetings coming thereafter. But the formality of it, you were right. But a happy, healthy, safe and peaceful new year to everybody. And we'll deal with apologies straight away, just looking around the chamber and looking at the screen to see what activity there is. I think I know maybe what's taking place, so I'll get the wee mouse file. And just before I come to apologies, get onto this. Alex, do you want to say something significant? Councillor Baird?
Well, if it's something significant, that'll be nothing new, as you know,
Okay.
Chair.
Yep.
But thank you very much for the introduction. Yes, as you know, Chair, at the new year, the honours list comes out. And again, the area has been very successful in having very relevant people right across the spectrum of society recognised for their contribution. So I would ask, Chair, that if you would consider in your role as Chair writing to them to congratulate them. As I say, thankfully, the honours list has become, instead of being focused or being seen to be focused in one area, it focused right across the spectrum and strata of society. So I think it's appropriate that those people who have been recognised be recognised by the Council as well, and through your good offices. If you're happy enough to do that, thank you, and thanks for allowing me in. Thank you.
I'll come to Councillor Thompson next.
Thank you very much, Chair, and want to wish everyone a happy new year. Just to second Councillor Baird's proposal that you on our behalf send a letter to everyone that has been recognised in His Majesty the King's new honours list, particularly within the Fermanagh District Council area. Happy to second that, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Maguire, Collier McGear.
Gormagoda Carty, I was coming to apologies, but obviously on the back of what the other councillors have contributed, I'd just like to say that anyone getting recognition for their endeavours across our district, they're entitled to our congratulations from whatever source. Do you wish me to continue with apologies then, Chair?
No, I'll just respond to Councillor Baird and Councillor Thompson. I kind of gathered you would, want to come in early with that type of proposal, which is 100% sound. So the way I'll respond to that is, with all due sensitivity, is that we will put the arrangements in place for the Council to recognise in the way that, in a way close to what you suggest. That's the way I'll say it. Because we have different views on the system, but I don't want my personal opinion to stand in the way of people getting the recognition that you have proposed and that has been seconded. So thank you very much. Okay, so that's apologies we're moving into now. Councillor Maguire, I'll get you on first here.
Gormagoda Carty, Neelis Ogmarian, Les Kilton Group of Hin Fian and up. I have no knowledge of any apologies, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And moving then to Paul Robinson, just had a wee problem here. Sorry, Councillor Warrington. Sometimes you get that wrong. Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Not aware of any apologies tonight. One councillor I know that's online will be leaving early, but no apologies from our group. And thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. No apologies from Democratic Unionist Party.
Okay. And Councillor Garrity might be on that one. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. One apology, Councillor Adam Gannon. And if you give me a wee bit of latitude here, Chair, just to be consistent with the South West College achievements last month, if I could ask if you would send a letter of congratulations to the CBS and OMA on the recent Ulster win of the Corn and Oak team, and particular congratulations to their management team. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Mary. Of course I will. That would be no great pain to me. Okay, moving on. I'll go to any smaller parties or independents wishing to record apologies. I don't think there is. Nobody indicating. I'll just take a seconder for the congratulations for the OMCBS, Councillor McAleer. Okay, and Councillor Crawford and others were willing, of course, but that's that. So that's the apologies dealt with, members. Moving on to item 2 on the agenda. We want to confirm and sign the minutes of the council meeting held on the 6th of December. And this is for accuracy only. Paper A, 22 pages in total. So we'll go through those. Page 1, accuracy. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, 18 and 19, 20 and 21, and page 22. Okay, so we need a proposer and a seconder. Councillor Warrington proposes, seconded by Councillor Robinson. Thank you. And we move now then to declarations of interest in the context of tonight's meeting. Does any member wish to declare interests at this stage? Again, I look to the chamber, and we've got Councillor Campbell.
Carly, declare an interest in item 20, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Garrity.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise, item 20 as a member of the Planning Committee.
Okay.
And let me see. There's another one, Chair. Declare an interest actually, and there's a motion as a member of the Planning Committee as well. Thank you.
Okay. And just personally, I'll do the same as a member of the Planning Committee in respect of those matters that you itemised there, Mary. Thank you. Councillor Coyle.
2 declarations, 12.1 motion rescinding, and item 20, please, as
Okay.
member of the Planning Committee.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Maguire.
I go, Margaret, carry, yeah, 12.1 as a member of the Planning Committee.
Okay, I'll go now to WebEx. Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to also wish everyone, including yourself and Chief Executive and senior officers, a very happy new year. And my sincere hope is that 2023 will be good for all of us. Chair, I want to declare an interest as a member of the Planning Committee in the rescinding motion 12.1 and also item 20, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go also to Councillor Rainey.
Thank you, Chair. 12.1 rescinding and 20 planning.
Okay, thanks, Alan. We move now to Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair, and declare an interest as a member of the Planning Committee in 12.1 and item 20.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Reilly, Corey O'Reilly.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise, 12.1 and 20 on the planning.
Okay. Councillor Robinson.
You Chair, 12.1 and 20, planning.
Fine. Councillor Feely.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. 12.1 as a member of the Planning Committee as well.
Okay. And Councillor Campbell again.
Sorry, Chairman, I suppose I declared a specific interest in 20 in terms of the application, and I would leave the chamber for that. But I'll also add 12.1, Chair, as the Planning Committee member. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Irvine.
12.1 and 20, member of the Planning Committee.
And Councillor McLaughlin.
Also 12.1 and 20, Planning Committee.
Okay. So thank you for that, members. And moving on now, and we'll be dealing with matters arising. Item 4 on your agenda from the council meeting of the 6th of December. So page by page, 22 pages in total, and page 1, page 2, page 3, and then Yahanak Akahar, page 4, and 5, page 6, and page 7, and page 8. Alison?
Thank you, Chair. Just at the top of page 8, item 6.2, which was the agreement to have an informal meeting with Safer Acute Services. As members will be aware from email communication that I issued, the group had requested that that briefing be deferred pending alternate arrangements, which would include for in-person attendance. Chair, on further discussions with the group, the preference would be for a special council meeting to be convened to hear the representations from Safer Acute Services and in particular the presentation of research data that the group have undertaken. We have looked at the schedule and you'll be aware that there are already a couple of special council meetings scheduled for February. So the earliest date that we could convene a special council meeting if members were amenable would be Tuesday, the 21st of February. Now, that would obviously be our normal 7 o'clock start time. We could look at an alternate date earlier, but it would have an earlier start time, which I appreciate may impact on members' attendance. The other option would be, Chair, we have the Health Subcommittee meeting, which is scheduled for the 24th of January. That is obviously streamed live. I know it wouldn't be the group's preference. Their preference is, as I say, for the special council meeting, but those are the options available to members.
Okay. My own view is that we should go for a special council meeting. It's their preference, the SOAS group. So I'll go now to Councillor Warrington.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I'll propose that we go for a special council meeting then on a date and time that suits everyone else. Most of us are flexible on times. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coyle.
I'd like to second that proposal, Chair.
Okay. Thanks, John. And that's agreed, members?
Chair, maybe just for completeness, are members content we proceed with the 21st then? That would give maximum flexibility, I think, around members' attendance too.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
It was in the diaries early, that's good. Okay, thank you. So page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11. Okay, Alison?
Thanks, Chair. Just to draw members' attention to correspondence dated the 21st of December, which is received from the Permanent Secretary of the Department of Health, Mr. May, and this is in response to the Council's concerns specifically regarding recruitment, the workforce strategy, and the role as well of the recruitment function, the Business Services Organisation, that's detailed in the response.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alison, for your report. I would like to propose that we note this correspondence, Chair. I want to welcome the efforts that have been made in terms of the recruitment and retention of staff. And certainly from the information that Mr. May has given us in this correspondence, it would appear that there has been quite a bit of work done. My sincere hope would be that that work would continue and in fact that those efforts should be redoubled. Chair, as you will be aware, we have observed over many years the impact that shortfall in staffing levels has impacted on our ability to deliver services, not only in primary care, but especially in secondary care, and none more pressing than the situation which we observe in the South West Acute Hospital with regard to acute surgical services. Chair, at the Special Council meeting last night, we heard from Mr. Guckian, the Chief Executive, how they were strapped really in terms of recruiting consultant surgeons, but also, and more concerning, or equally concerning, the whole aspect of clinical interdependencies, whereby the new regulations in respect of the provision of acute surgery would require 24/7 access to a range of other consultant specialists, including cardiology, endocrinology, nephrology, interventional radiology, and so on. And certainly recruitment of suitably trained staff is a critical issue. So what I want to propose, Chair, is that we write back to Mr. May, thanking him for his information, emphasising the need to continue to recruit staff in all disciplines, and look forward to significant investment in the very valuable resource which is our clinical staff. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Donald.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to second the noting of this correspondence. I would just, in regard to the proposal, I'm happy to second it, but I would ask the proposer whether they would include the following, just additional considerations. The correspondence is fairly clear that there has been undoubtedly and admittedly belatedly a move to increase training and recruitment efforts. But I think our experience in Fermanagh and Omagh is really that the issue we're facing is not so much recruitment as retention. And there's very, very little in this report when it comes to retention. There is some figures, there's a welcome figure in terms of the number of additional nurses that have been trained up and who remain in place on page 2. Which is 1,216 have been recruited and then 1,127 remain in post. No detail on the times involved there, but I would like to see if there was what additional measures have been taken to ensure retention of staff. And obviously when we say that, we are all cognizant of the financial pressures on the workforce in terms of the fact that pay here is again, failing to keep ahead of trends globally, and therefore we're competing to retain clinically qualified staff and experienced staff. But equally, the staffing levels that are resulting from the pay situation are such that we have not seen, as has been stated on page 3, the follow-through on the commitment to safe staffing legislation. So again, I would like to see if there was something raised on that. The final point is that the Permanent Secretary raises the tight financial strain circumstances, and that is undoubted. I think funding for NHS services are down 18% since the Labour government left office in the UK. But we are also aware, anyone who's watching the health service closely, that vast sums of money are now being channeled to private sector operators at virtually every level and tier of the health and social care system, and that this is sucking the lifeblood out of it and preventing the proper payment for frontline workers and directly employed workers. So I would like to include a request, if possible, if the proposer was amenable to it, for to ask if there could be a quantification over the last few years of how much NHS resources have been going to private sector and what they call independent operators, because I think that would be a useful statistic for this council in particular, given what we're facing at SWA. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor O'Coffey. So we have a proposal and a seconder, but I'm going to ask the proposer, if Josephine, if she is willing to incorporate the additional points made by Councillor O'Coffey. Josephine?
Yes. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor O'Coffey for the very valid points that he raises, and I'm happy to incorporate that into my proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks. And Councillor Keenan?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, fully support the proposal by the previous two councillors. I do note on page 3, Peter May said that he could confirm the department has not considered seeking assistance from the Henry Reeve Brigades from Cuba and have no plans to do so currently. But given the information we received last night that to make the SWA emergency surgery in the SWA viable, we'll need a whole new renal department, cardiology team, and other such things, I would encourage Peter May to actually consider this seriously, and I propose to do so. Once again, thank you, Chair.
Okay, so supportive, and I think agreed all around, members, isn't it? Is there? Yep, okay. Councillor Keenan might have a seconder and Councillor McAleer. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. No, just happy enough to second that. I would echo the the sentiments of the previous three speakers, and I think anything we can be doing to improve and to reinstate these services we have to be doing. So it's a good proposal. We've seen the vital work that the Henry Reeve Brigade have done in other countries. So I don't see why we should be looking a gift horse in a mouse such as that. So I'm happy enough to second this proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Green.
Just on Councillor Keenan's proposal, was I might be wrong on that, but was it to do with getting a department to look into bringing Cuban doctors over to help out? Was that what the proposal was? All right. Can I just ask, is that even something that the Cuban doctors would do? Like, to me, my understanding of that organisation is that they go to emergency situations where there's earthquakes, for instance, in Italy when the pandemic was at its height, when things like that. I genuinely don't think that that's what they're there for. I don't think it's even a competent thing to ask them to do. I don't think that's what they're there for. Can the Chief Executive maybe clarify, is coming to actually take up posts in SWA something that that Cuban doctors organisation would do? Have they ever did it in any other, as would call it, first world country? To me, it sounds just completely off the wall that we're even asking a group of doctors that go to emergency situations to come here to take up posts in SWA or wherever.
Okay, honest.
Yeah, Chair, my understanding is, I won't claim to know the whole history of the organisation, but they typically go, as Councillor Green has indicated, to respond to emergency situations at the request of the national government. So, for example, in relation to Italy, I think they also went into Haiti post the earthquake, and certainly they have helped significantly in Central America and other countries. I think when we had made the previous inquiry, the commissioning role, if you like, would have to come from the Department of Health. Whether they undertake more routine surgical and medical rotations, I don't know. It would certainly be something that we could investigate, but certainly my understanding is it's short-term emergency interventions, and their force mobilises quite quickly as a result of that.
Sorry, carry on. I'll get you back in, Seamus.
Could I propose then that we actually look into that? If we're asking a group of doctors of that to come, is it even relevant? Is there even a possibility that they would respond to a situation like we are in, rather than I would presume that we'd actually look quite foolish asking them to come to a place like this, when it's the likes of earthquakes, volcano, natural disasters that they go to, not something like this here. So I would propose that the council actually, before the right again, they actually find out what actually is the procedure and what the Cuban doctors will actually attend.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I just want to go back to the initial letter sent from the council. It asked to highlight the recruitment element of the health and social care workforce strategy had failed the people of Fermanagh and Omagh district. Now the letter, another professionally written civil service letter, does not drill down into the West into what's happening in Fermanagh and Omagh. So I would request, I'd like to propose that we go back and get those details. The workforce, they say it's increased by 663 full-time equivalents. Well, where are those from? Are those in Altnagelvin? Are those in Omagh? Are those in Enniskillen? I'd like more information on that. I'd also request, and I requested this last night, the special council meeting, details on resignations, particularly in SWA, and also transfer or where senior staff have moved to Altnagelvin, if we could request that also. And perhaps, I'm not sure whether it's in the remit of the council, but I do know that the SOAS group has invited Mr. May, the permanent secretary, to meet with them. And if the council was inclined to support that, I think I think if we could endorse that as a council, that they meet that lobby group too, please, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
If I may, just on Councillor Armstrong's latter point, it may be something in subject to members' approval in pursuing that. The council also has a request, a long-standing request to meet with Mr. May itself. We haven't so far received a response to that. So certainly I'm sure the council would wish to support the request to SOAS, but it may be timely to remind of our own request as well.
Just want to check with Councillor McCaffrey if you wanted in at this point.
Gurmagad Kyherly, yeah, just to come in just quickly on this. I know there's been a lot of correspondence back and forth. I don't know if there is a position here, and Alison, the Chief Executive, can advise, but perhaps we could look to organisations such as the WHO, the World Health Organization, within the UN. I mean, they provide technical support to countries, and they would monitor health trends and advise on policy. And one of their main functions is really to serve the vulnerable and to make sure that people have universal health coverage. So I don't know if there is a place here to make a representation. Certainly, I don't believe that the people in Fermanagh will have adequate health coverage with these proposed cuts by the trust, and the really concerning lack of effort so far to actually address the situation. Just on a brief side note, I myself received an operation this morning, nothing too major, and I'm back at home now and online, ready to serve the people of Fermanagh. But I did receive an operation this morning under the NHS, and top class service, friendly staff, and working under, as we know, tough conditions, and I couldn't praise them more highly. So I think just to reiterate that we are proud of all of our staff in the health service, but if there is a place here now to maybe look for other groups to advise or even to show policies that have worked, because I think so far what we've heard from the trust has been, well, disappointing, to use one word, and I'll leave it there. Gura Míle Mágad.
Okay, thank you, Gura Míle Mágad, and we go now to Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I just want to agree with what Councillor Green was saying. The people, the doctors in Cuba, certainly where they do a great job in emergency situations. I don't think they're going to solve our problems. We're looking for doctors to come in on a long-term basis and to stay with us for a while. And whereas the idea might be good, I think we need something more substantive and this will last longer. Thank you.
Councillor Feely.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I don't know whether...
Sorry, can you repeat that, Anthony?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I had a wee bit of
interference. I'm not sure whether Victor second Seamus' proposal, so I'll second it, and I'll second Chris as well.
Okay, thank you. Now, Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second Councillor Armstrong's proposal. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you. So, Alison, we'll have a series of proposals here. Could you assist us maybe with summarising and pointing the way forward?
Yes, Chair. Firstly, we had the noting of the correspondence which was proposed by Councillor Deehan, seconded by Councillor O'Coffey, but also in that noting that we would write back to the department emphasising the need to continue to recruit staff at South West Acute Hospital, but to meet the required operational standards, emphasising the need for the additional financial investment to ensure that the required standards are met. And the secondary part of that was regarding the retention of staff, to seek, first of all, detail of the retention measures, but also a quantification of the national health resources that have been used. I'm assuming across Northern Ireland, but with a particular interest, obviously, in the Western Trust regarding private sector operators. We then had a proposal from Councillor Keenan, seconded by Councillor McAleer, that we would write back to the department encouraging use of the Henry Reeve Brigade in light of the significant staffing pressures at South West Acute Hospital and the various disciplines that are required to make it more sustainable and to meet the operational requirements, the regulatory standards, sorry. We then just had a proposal from Councillor Green, seconded by Councillor Feely, that in the first instance we would seek clarification from the Reeve Brigade if indeed this is a facility, a service that they could provide by way of, if you like, mainstream medical provision, and if that is something that, if invited, they could actually undertake. Then Councillor McCaffrey, seconded by Councillor Feely, that we would write to the World Health Organization to seek their advice and to see what guidance they could provide in terms of the measures that are in place, and also I suppose their indication around staffing resources in pressurised climates. And finally, Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Crawford, that we would refer back to the original letter, ask Mr May to provide the detail requested, but also follow up with the matters raised at last night's meeting, including the full detail of any resignations, transfers, staff reorganisations or reassignments from South West Acute Hospital to other hospitals, in particular to Balnagelvin.
Okay, so I think there would be...
Sorry, Chair, so there was also this, that we would support the request for South Saver Acute Services meeting with the Permanent Secretary, and at the same time re-energise or remind the Permanent Secretary of the Council's invitation to meet with them.
Okay, I think we're agreed on most things there. Maybe just have to go back to Councillor Keenan to see if he's content enough for that scoping out research approach first before we would move on that. Can I anticipate, Councillor Keenan, that you would agree to that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, fully agree for writing to Henry Reeves Brigade. Yeah, 100%. That's excellent.
Okay, that's great. And members, I think that's agreed then, the series of proposals that are contained. Aye. Okay. Just happy enough, Alison, then? Okay. Moving on then, members. Page 12 and page 13. Page 14 and page 15. 16 and 17.
16, Chair.
16, Alison.
Thank you, Chair. Just to draw members' attention to the correspondence received from the Permanent Secretary of DAERA. This is in relation to the Council's recently adopted farming motion. And as you'll recall, there were a number of requests that were included, or I suppose concerns expressed in the motion, and then requests regarding immediate financial support to assist with the ongoing sustainability of the sector. And the Permanent Secretary responds to those various requests, setting the constraints that the department is working within, and also noting that any future policy decisions would be the prerogative of a new minister as opposed to officials.
Or your Seamus Green led the hull?
Yeah, I suppose I'm not surprised about the letter coming back from the Permanent Secretary. It was probably what we all expected, but we hope to keep the farming issue front and centre. As far as supports for the farming industry, they talk about a 2% increase. Let's not forget that inflation is running between 10 and 15%. So they're actually celebrating the fact that the farmers are taking between a 10 and 15% cut in their payments. I think it's actually outrageous at the minute that any party or any is keeping Stormont, the Assembly, down at the minute, when so many sectors, from health to education to infrastructure to the farming industry, are crying out for help, and nothing can be done. As the Permanent Secretary more or less points out, all they can do is administer to the rules as they stand. They can't change, they can't add, they can't provide extra help. So I think it really is time for grown-up politics at this stage, and that people get back into the Assembly and help the people that has elected them, because at this stage people are in dire need. The farming industry are on their knees crying out for help, and has been completely ignored, and I think it's quite sad. So there's no point in writing back around, and so I propose to note that.
Okay. Councillor Feely.
Yeah, I disagree with everything Seamus said there, like 2%. Some was good when fuel and fertiliser and feed and stuff is nearly double in price from a year or two ago, and the price of cattle is middling, just not that great at the minute either. So I'll second Seamus' proposal.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Swift.
Yeah, Gurmagat Kerlach. And well, first of all, I want to thank everybody who contributed to writing that motion in the first instance. The Agriculture Liaison Group, as I said at the last meeting, worked tirelessly for and on behalf of the farmers, because the majority of the makeup of that group are made up from that very industry. So they are the people who are at the first hand and know best what the needs and the demands are and where the gaps are. Now, in a similar vein, I too am sorely disappointed with this response, but I do expect better. And I will always demand better for the farming industry and indeed every sector that is impacted by the lack of responsibility that is shown by central government. This letter in itself, in a nutshell, it explains quite clearly where the fundamental responsibility lies, and it's that of a minister who is supposed to be working for on behalf of the farmers at Stormont to resolve the financial problems and the pressure in this industry. But once again, we are told, and we witness again in this letter, the continued failures of the absence of a Stormont tier and their responsibility, of which we all pay regional rates for and to. And yet again, and I state again, we're not getting that service. It's just not good enough. So I want to say here tonight, I think that on behalf of the farming industry, and not to wait another minute longer, we need to see investment devolve to us at local level, and why not? That motion in itself shows and demonstrates that the councillors elected in this room can work together and are more than willing to work together for and on behalf of the farming industry, and as spoken earlier, for and on behalf of health. So it's the investment we need. And considering that we are the only form of government that has genuinely been working for constituents, then it only makes practical sense, in my opinion, that the economical powers are devolved to us. So I would say make it local and send the budgets to us, and we will certainly have the officials who can disseminate that funding where it is needed and where we have heard it is needed and is necessary. Local budgets are the trends. They have been the trends over the past number of years. I fully support all of that. And we are the local authority who knows the needs of our citizens and our ratepayers. So I think to fairly prosper the farming industry and to take them off their knees, give us the local budgets and we can disseminate it. So I would propose that our council now collectively agree to write to the appropriate personnel. I'm not asking them, I'm telling them to send the investment to this local authority, and we will help our citizens genuinely. Gurmagat.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Swift, thank you. Looking around now. Councillor McCaffrey, Corleor McCaffrey, let the hull.
Cormagat, Caherly Arish. There's been a couple of good points made, and again, I want to take a moment and praise the work that's been done by the Agricultural Liaison Group. And you know, absolutely, look, this is just scandalous. Farmers have been left on the short end yet again. We did have an agricultural minister who repeatedly, time and time again, acted in his own selfish political interests, not in the interests of the farming community of which he is meant to serve and meant to represent properly. The example of that, of course, is the protocol bill, which has been brought to us because of Brexit, which, you know, most farmers at the time were ahead of the politicians and knew that the European Union provides a great rate for farmers, particularly farmers who are from disadvantaged ground conditions. And so I think, you know, we've seen this play out with ministers who ignore the sector that they're responsible for and go along with whatever the political wish of the party at the time is. And I think that has to end. If farming is to survive into the 21st century, then we need to make sure that they're adequately protected and that they are rewarded for the high quality work to do and for, you know, the top level of food and drink that we have available in this country because of the work of all of our farmers from north, east, south and west. So yeah, I want to support them at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Corleor McCaffrey. Looking around now. There was a proposal in there, wasn't there, Bernice? Okay, I'll go now to Councillor Coyle.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll not reiterate what other members have said. The rise in costs within the agriculture sector has, you know, it has quadrupled. The department has talked here about, cash flow pressures, but, the cost of animals haven't really increased in, the 10, 12% inflation. They have stayed stagnant and, food prices have gone up, but the bottom line, the primary producer in Fermanagh and Omagh are not getting their fair share of the spoils, and this is making families' lives more difficult. Everybody is grappling with the cost of living. It is not getting any better, but the department needs to step up and needs to support us, and I'll second Councillor Swift's proposal. Probably fall on deaf ears, but it's good to have it in writing and show that we do mean business and we can work together and sort out issues.
Okay, thank you for that. So, members, can I agree, or can we agree to support the proposal coming from Bernice, supported by John Coyle, proposed and seconded? Can I anticipate agreement then for that course of action? Okay, members, agreed. Thank you. Now, that's page 16 and 17, and page 18, and page 19. And then Liahanach Afiha, page 20, page 21, and page 22. Okay, so I don't need a proposer and seconder or anything like that. That's that. Okay. So, moving on, members, till item 5 in the agenda. I'll just double check that is the case. Okay. Item 5 on the agenda, to confirm the minutes of the reconvened Planning Committee meeting held on the 21st of November. And again, this is accuracy only. Paper B. So I'll be going to Councillor Tommy Maguire. Normally I'd be going to Councillor Thomas O'Reilly, but in this instance I'll be going to Councillor Tommy Maguire. I think that's right, isn't it, Thomas? Yes. So, we're going to go through the 8 pages then. Page 1, page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And Collier McGear.
Molum Minturski, I propose the minutes, Chair.
Okay. Gurumayagat. Do I need a seconder then? Okay, I need a seconder then. That'll be Councillor Robinson. Thanks very much for that. Moving on then to item 6. And we're dealing with 12 pages of the Environmental Services Committee meeting. Again, for accuracy only, paper C, and we normally look to Councillor John McLaughlin for leadership in this matter. So, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I'll go now to Councillor McCloughery. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Propose the adoption of the minutes.
Okay, thanks very much. And to have seconder in Councillor Armstrong, thanks very much. Okay. Move on then to paper D, and Councillor Keenan is the chair of our Brexit committee. So I'll ask Eamon to pay close attention. 4 pages, and again, accuracy, paper D. So page 1, 2, 3, and 4. Eamon, might you propose? Eamon?
Yeah, happy to propose, Chairman.
Thanks very much. And do I have a seconder in the room? Councillor Garrity, thanks. Okay. And then moving on now to paper E, Councillor Buchanan chairs our Regeneration and Community Committee, of course. So we'll deal with 16 pages here, accuracy only. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. Councillor Buchanan.
Happy to propose the minutes for accuracy, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Have we got a seconder? Okay, Councillor Blake, thanks very much. Not in a position to on this occasion. Paul, just a look right. Councillor Warrington, that offers, thank you very much. That's proposed and seconded accordingly. And then item 9 on the agenda, to confirm the minutes of P&R. Councillor Thompson is our chair in Policy and Resources. So our meeting was held on the 14th of December, paper F. So again, a lengthy meeting, 17 pages. So we'll go through those for accuracy. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you again, Chair. I'm happy to propose the adoption of the minutes of the Policy and Resources Committee dated the 14th of December 2022.
Thank you, Earl, for that. And have I got a seconder? Of Councillor Robinson, thanks very much. And moving on now to the Planning Committee minutes. Councillor O'Reilly being our chairman there, chairperson or chair, to confirm the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 15th of December, paper G, 16 pages, accuracy only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12, 13, 14. Councillor McAleer.
Chair, and I appreciate it's not accuracy, but just on page 13 and under point 10, can
See,
we
if it's
get,
not accuracy, Emmett, Councillor McAleer, if it's not accuracy, I can't take it.
Chair,
because
can I clarify then just?
if it is accuracy, I can definitely take it.
No, just to clarify, there's a report 10 there on solastalgia and this new term that's emergent. How can we get further detail on that if you're not on the planning committee? And that's my question. Thank you, Chair.
Well, I do understand, Emmett, that is, a bugbear of understanding for members that aren't on the Plan Committee. So if you didn't mind, Alison, could we get a response to that? No, if you didn't mind. Yep.
Chair, we can certainly arrange for some of the information will be confidential, but we could certainly arrange for members not on the Planning Committee to have detail of the report, and the relevant officer who briefed the committee could also be available to discuss it.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thanks, and thanks for letting me on. Thanks for that, Chief Executive. Can I request that that's done then, or do I need to do that outside the meeting? Or
No, that'll be actioned. Thanks,
Brilliant.
Councillor. Thanks, Emmett. So 13, 14 and 15 and 16. Okay, so we'll go to Councillor O'Reilly.
Propose the minutes for adoption, Chair.
Okay, and I've got a seconder, Councillor Garrity. Thank you very much. So that's agreed, members. Now, we'll go through the correspondence section of the meeting. Alison, how many letters are we dealing with in this section?
Just on that last matter, to the best of my knowledge, the solastalgia report was actually in public, so it's available on the website currently under the Planning Committee in minutes from last month, and certainly the officer would be happy to follow up if there's any queries. Sorry,
Okay, that's
realize
helpful.
that.
No
Sorry.
problem. In terms of the number of letters, Alison, how many do we have? 5. Okay. So none in the other category. Okay, so 11.1. Okay, so we'll probably have 6 items of correspondence then coming up next. So 11.1, do you want to itemize that, please?
Pardon, sorry. This is the response from DAERA in relation to the previously adopted motion by the Council for an independent environmental protection agency, and the correspondence sets out the commitments made in New Decade, New Approach, and the efforts that DAERA have made in this regard.
Okay, thank you. And can I have a proposer to note? Councillor Robinson and Councillor McPhillips proposed and seconded to note. So that's noted, members. Okay, thank you. Moving on then to 11.2, to note correspondence dated the 12th of December from Newry Morning Down District Council regarding a motion, workers' legal rights to tips. Okay?
Yes, Chairs, you've indicated this is details of a motion adopted by Newry Morning Down District Council, and they're requesting that the council gives the matter consideration.
Okay.
So in normal terms, we would either accept or note.
Okay. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually going to come in after Alex. I thought he had hit his button there. I'll let
Councillor Baird.
Yeah, I would certainly support a request that this council supports that motion. I think it's only appropriate that the people at the pit face, for want of a better phrase, in the hospitality business who provide the service get the tips because of the service they provide, and that it may not be necessarily that's the individual concern, because quite often within the establishment there's a pooling of tips, but that's agreed between the staff themselves. But I would certainly support this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Councillor McLaughlin.
Yeah, I'd like to second this is indeed, these are some of the lowest paid workers we have in society, and they perform an important role, and any reward that they get should be given to the staff. So it's totally agree with seconding this proposal.
Okay. And Councillor Coyle.
Thank you, Chair. Fully support us writing back and supporting this motion. It's very it's timely and relevant to Fermanagh and Omagh. We do have a lot of world-class hospitality venues in our district, and low-paid staff in these industries, and the high-quality service they do provide to locals and tourists alike. They should be able to receive all of their tips and have it protected. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor Swift.
Well, a little bit different. I'm intend to slam the fact that the workers are paid so lowly, and that the employers are so ruthless in paying them what is an unfair wage, leaving them in the category of being lowly paid for a job that no doubt, as evident in all of the places around our own district, is carried out so well and happily, regardless of the abysmal wages. So I'm inclined to slam a lot of what the motion is saying, in that it forgets to address the real issue, and that is the unfair wages. Of course, we would all support the right to legal tips, but for the tips coming from the customer who's in and already paying possibly a high enough and overpriced cost for a meal, and then to have to add a tip on top of that due to unfair wages to acknowledge the good service that they're receiving, I think is even doubly unfair. So I'm inclined to write back to the motion writers, whoever they may be, and state that quite clearly. We all need to be collectively working against the unfair wages that's still being dished out throughout the country.
Okay, thank you. I'll go now to Councillor Matthew Bell.
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to voice my support for this as well, as someone who worked in the hospitality sector not too long ago. Tips are a fantastic uplift whenever you do get them, particularly around the Christmas period, and for there to be a suggestion that workers aren't getting those tips is ridiculous. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, and Councillor O'Coffey. Yep, I can.
And it shouldn't really need to be explained. I do think I was clear.
Okay, go now to Councillor O'Coffey.
Thanks, Chair. I would actually reiterate the points made by Councillor Swift. I think they're accurate. The reliance on tips is a reflection of low wages in general in this sector. I think the beneficiaries are estimated at 7 million people will benefit from this in England, Scotland, and Wales. Sorry, 2 million workers rather, and that's 7% of the workforce will benefit from this legislation, which shows the size of the hospitality sector, but also the need for this. The fact that it hasn't been brought forward in Northern Ireland is obviously concerning. It is also notable that workers who do not receive their tips are often therefore forced to find their own way home in unsafe conditions after work. There are also issues around sexual harassment, which are very prevalent in the sector. 90% of workers report sexual harassment in the workplace, which is a horrendous number. However, I'd like to make a proposal of my own. If you look at England and Scotland and Wales, there's a lot more that local councils can do. And I'd like to propose that this council investigates opportunities to actually take the initiative around a code of practice on tips for local employers. And that we should investigate the potential to make this a condition of renewal of entertainment licenses, such as has already occurred in Glasgow, Newcastle, and Edinburgh just before Christmas, and those local authorities in those areas. So I think we should be looking for making it a requirement that employers in this sector demonstrate their duty of care towards their employees, and that they plan to ensure workers get home safety without being out of pocket, effectively legislating for free taxis home. So this is a major issue, getting home safety after work for employees in this sector. And it's one of the issues I think we can make a real difference on as a council. And I don't see why we shouldn't be up there with the rest of the most progressive councils on these islands taking the initiative. And that's my proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think that sentence that the previous two speakers Councillor Swift and Councillor Coffey have taken issue with, I would concur that the idea or the notion that supporting this motion would be an agreed positive step towards improving the rights and entitlements of lower paid workers. I think that's what the issue is here. As has been said by previous speakers, the workers in the hospitality industry and the hospitality sector are some of the lowest paid. They're some of the most exploited workers in the workforce. Years ago, it was an industry I worked in, but I know recent research shows that 46% of people queried by one particular survey were considering leaving the industry, with factors including stress, which was 74% of respondees, excessive hours, 61%, unsociable hours, 58%, low pay, 55%, bullying, 44%, and a lack of career progression at 37%. But again, probably the most alarming is the figure that Councillor O'Coffey referred to, that a staggering 95% of respondees in the hospitality industry reported experiencing sexual harassment or abuse at their workplace. I'm happy to support the proposal made by Councillor Swift, and more than happy to second the proposal made by Councillor Coffey. I think anything we can do to support those workers, we have to be seen to do it. And it will do this council absolutely no harm to be seen to be as progressive as some of those other councils that were mentioned by Councillor Coffey. Thank you, Chair.
Corrier O'Reilly.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm quite happy to support all of those previous proposals. I think it's very, very important that we do all that we can as a council, and certainly Donald's proposal to investigate what we can do to be able to tie that into a strong encouragement, whether it can be done within getting a license. It has been done in other places. So I would certainly welcome the investigation. I think it's important that the workers in the industry get the tips themselves. But I think coupled with that, and Bernice is quite right, that is not to be taken out of the amount of wage that they're paid initially by employers. And I know that certainly in Fermanagh and Omagh, we have some very good employers that look after their staff very well and do their very best for them. But they are in a relatively low paid workforce. They are working in sometimes very difficult conditions and at very unsociable hours and having to try to make their own way home. And that can be a very, very dangerous time for members of that industry at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So certainly anything that we can do to support what is a very big and worthwhile industry to Fermanagh and Omagh, and one that we want to see grow. And Chair, the only way that we're going to see, one of the ways that we're going to see growth in that is that employees feel that it is a career that they can get into and make a good living in going forward. And certainly as a council, I'm sure we want to do what we can to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I will stick to the words of the motion as printed. So on just behalf of the Democratic Unionist Party, we're happy to support the motion as is. Others have added pieces into it there and what have you. They're entitled to their views on that. But with regard to the motion itself, as being, I think it was Councillor Baird proposed there, we'll stick with that on behalf of the DUP grouping. Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking for a little latitude on this, please, and I fully support what Councillor O'Reilly said regarding the hospitality industry. Just thinking back to a motion that I raised in April last year about hospitality, I wonder, can the Chief Executive check, please? We were to invite Colin Neal from down to discuss the hospitality charter and to promote that within the district. And just if I could just see where that is, that proposal.
Certainly, Chair. I know we have a number of informal meetings. Actually, there was another related one, not dissimilar on, well, it was the hospitality workers within Unite as well that we came forward. The invitations, and to the best of my knowledge, have issued, so we're just working to get dates that comply with the councillor schedule. So we'll hopefully have an update on those. But yes, it has. We're certainly aware of it.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. And just to acknowledge that I do recall that you did bring forward a motion in April, and that, the council has showed then and since strong support for hospitality workers, to get this right. So, Alison, with a number of proposals, are they mutually exclusive? Can they all be adopted?
Well, I suppose, Chair, really the only matter, I think some members had expressed a concern regarding the thrust of the motion, but unless perhaps we were in our general support, this is the bit that may be inconsistent, if we were to actually, based on Councillor Swift's proposal, seconded by Councillor O'Coffey, that we would write back to Newry Mord and Down expressing our concerns regarding the plight of low-paid workers, and there certainly should be no requirement for anyone to have to depend upon tips to make up a living wage. So if there was an agreement from the proposer and seconder for that to be incorporated in wider correspondence back to the council, Newry Mord and Down, then I would have thought we have broadly unanimous support, Chair. And then there has certainly been no dissent expressed to Councillor O'Coffey's proposal that the council would investigate a code of practice and that we would tie that in with the requirements associated with entertainment licences.
Okay, I think I can anticipate enough agreement for those proposals to go forward together. Okay, everybody's been heard. Do we need a proposer and seconder now? No. Okay, we've dealt with that. Thanks, members. Now, moving on then till correspondence item 11.3 regarding citizens' assemblies. Alison?
Yes, Chair. So this was really the council's motion regarding the establishment of citizens' assemblies, and we had set out some specific proposals within that motion, and obviously the role potentially of the shared island unit, which is referenced in the correspondence. So just to confirm, Chair, we haven't received any separate communication as yet from the shared island unit to follow that up with us to date, albeit we do know from other reports to the council's own successes on some shared island applications.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor McCann, Stephen McCann.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Well, I note with disappointment that the Office of the Taoiseach has no plans at this time to convene a Citizens' Assembly to plan for the reunification of Ireland. Instead, they say they are minded to wait until a future referendum on the constitutional future of Ireland is called before they begin to prepare for change in any meaningful way. This mirrors the British government's approach to the disastrous Brexit referendum, having a referendum without any meaningful debate on the issue, and it's wrong. What we need is meaningful discussion and debate in a formal structure on what constitutional change in Ireland will look like. And then, and only then, can voters in any future referendum fully understand what they're actually voting on. The correspondence outlines some of the engagements that the Shared Island Unit have taken part in, and whilst these are useful in shaping Irish government policies across various sectors, it's still no substitute for a formal citizens' assembly on the subject of the constitutional future of Ireland. I welcome confirmation that the Shared Island Unit will meet this council in due course, and I would like to see this issue on any future agenda for that meeting, Chair. In keeping with this general issue, Chairman, and maybe asking for a slight bit of latitude, I want to highlight an issue that came to light recently within the Passport Office in Dublin. Since December...
The reason I'll accept that, Stephen, is because I know both yourself and Councillor Campbell want to talk about this in any urgent and relevant business, but because of the North-South, the Taoiseach's office aspect to this, I'm going to allow you to carry on and talk about that matter. So please proceed.
Okay, Chair, thank you. Since December the 12th, the Passport Office in Dublin has not been posting passports and documentation to the North, and this has caused and continues to cause significant inconvenience to those who are travelling imminently and who are waiting on their travel documents. Whilst this is hopefully a short-term issue, it again highlights the need for an Irish Passport Office situated in the North. And with that said, Chair, I would propose that we write to the Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, who also heads up the Department for Foreign Affairs in Dublin, highlighting the massive disruption to Irish passport holders here who've had to travel to Dublin to collect their documents recently, and again call for the Irish government to establish an Irish Passport Office in the North without any further delay. Thank you, Chair, for allowing that there at that juncture.
Caherly, and I want to thank you for facilitating the AOB and bringing it forward to this junction in the meeting. I suppose I want to fully support what Councillor McCann has said. It is disappointing in relation to the unwillingness to open a passport office in the North. There's been a demand now for many years, and it's growing really. And I suppose I was disappointed with the news that the Irish government had a freeze on posting passports to the North. When I first heard this from a constituent, I immediately checked with the Passport Office because it just almost seemed unbelievable, although I didn't doubt what I was being told. So I hope it's something that's very much a short-term thing and that it's resolved quickly. And wasn't it the Taoiseach, the current Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, that said that no Irish government would leave the citizens of the North behind again? And well, I mean, I do feel that citizens in the North are being treated unfairly here in relation to the issuing of passports or the posting of those passports. So I hope it's something that is resolved as a matter of priority, and I'd happily second Councillor McCann's proposal, Chair.
Go now to Councillor Chris McCaffrey, Corleor Christopher McCaffrey.
Gurmagat Caherly, I'm just obviously in support of my party colleagues' motion there, and this is a very serious issue which most people on the island have experienced now. I've worked closely with Senator Niall O'Donnelly on this particular issue, and as he's the only North Six County representative in the Shannon, and we've repeatedly called, as have all members of Sinn Féin and other parties, repeatedly called to a much needed passport office in the North. It just makes sense. News that the Passport Office has temporarily suspended posting passports to us now clearly highlights again the gap and the need for this. We now head into a new year. People plan their holidays, and it's causing uncertainty and concern. And it comes on the back of a record-breaking year, as was mentioned, with just over 50,000 first-time applications for an Irish passport coming from the 6 counties, 128,000 applications in total. So it just makes sense. There's clearly a demand, and we would again be raising this campaign, obviously in the Shannon and elsewhere, here in the council and wherever we can, calling on the Irish government to engage positively and to deliver this service for citizens on this island. So again, just very much in support of this, and well done to Councillor McCann and Councillor Campbell. Gurmila Magov.
Encouraged to put this on, Nov. Councillor McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. No, supportive of the proposal in relation to the Irish passports. I think it's sensible and obviously very timely. Just in relation to one of the points raised or outlined in terms of the Shared Island Fund, there's a note there that 11 million euros has been set aside for All Ireland biodiversity actions on peatland restoration and biosecurity, and obviously it's hugely disappointing and distressing that that's come after disasters such as Derrybrain down in Galway and obviously Meanbog closer to home. I note from the council and from previous reports to the council that we're getting through the 8 projects, the cross-border projects we're involved in, almost 1.3 million funding, but they're noted through things like tourism, heritage, economic development, business innovation, and rural and urban regeneration. I'm just wondering, in terms of that pot of peatland restoration and biosecurity, is any of that coming to this council area, or do we have that information to hand? Or again, if it's something going forward that we could maybe look towards, I'm thinking, I suppose, particularly of the Black Bog in my own area, but obviously there are no shortage of peatland areas across the district. Thank you.
Chair, firstly, in terms of peatland restoration, one of our shared island projects, which is with Cavan County Council in terms of Quilca, does actually involve that and elements for Donegal. My understanding on the Biodiversity Fund, we can send the information around, is it actually went to a relatively limited number of what would be described broadly as strategic organisations. I think there were certainly agriculture, forestry. It wasn't open for local bids or for council bids, to the best of my recollection. I think the intention, Chair, is that the Biodiversity Fund would be used as preparatory for perhaps further strategic applications on a cross-border basis. But it wasn't, as I say, it wasn't open to councils to bid into. We can certainly send the detail of the breakdown as we have it for further information. But I think the intent, certainly from the policy statements that have been recently announced, is that there's likely to be a further call for biodiversity initiatives from Shared Island, and it may be that those will be at a more local level. But we can certainly forward the information as we have it.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, thanks for letting me back in. Thanks for that response, Chief Executive. Yeah, just can I request that we do that then? Thank you.
Okay. So there we have it. There has been a proposal and a seconder regarding passport processing difficulties, request for a passport office restated. Were there any other proposals? Okay. Just, and before I come to Councillor O'Coffey, Councillor McCann and Councillor Campbell, can I take it that you will agree to propose and second the noting? Okay. That's agreed. Okay, thanks very much. Councillor O'Coffey?
Yeah, it's just a question, really. I don't know much about this, but I see the reference in the correspondence to the Shared Ireland Dialogues, I think it's called. I'm just wondering if was there any engagement with this council or any events in this area as it was resulting from this? All right, thanks.
There certainly has been, there would have been no events in this area. The nearest, there would have been one in Cavan, to the best of my recollection, which is probably the nearest. They've largely been virtual events, sectoral, typically on the broader themes of Shared Island, for example, education, economy, maybe tourism. And there has occasionally been an invitation issued. Others have been done by webinar, but they're largely done on a sectoral basis. They do have quite a comprehensive website, Chair, the Shared Island Initiative, which does include all of the webinars and links to both the research papers and the previous events.
And then we would have had an informal meeting ourselves with the Shared Island Unit, an informal council meeting, probably about a year and a half ago, would it have been? Okay, so members, I'm going to anticipate agreement unless recorded otherwise. Okay, agreed, members. And we're about to move on then to item 11.4. To note the details, Councillor McAleer, do you wish to come in at this point? Happy enough? Okay. To note the details of the National Association Councillors Conference, Domestic Abuse and Modern Slavery, taking place on the 23rd of January. Have you anything further to add to that then, Alison?
No, Chair, obviously it's this week. We would just be proposing the conference be noted. The costs are detailed and travel costs would be additional to that.
Okay, just take a councillor to note then. Councillor McAleer has got in and Councillor Armstrong proposed and seconded to note. Thank you. Okay. And moving on then. Sorry. Okay, you wish to speak on the matter?
And again, just very briefly, Chair, no, happy enough to propose to note, and I think obviously with recent events, it's a very timely conference, made all the more relevant in the aftermath of the brutal murder, not only of Natalie McNally in her home in Lurgan just before Christmas, but also of Bruna Fonesca, who was found dead in an apartment in County Cork on New Year's Day. So I do propose that we note, I think the cost notation is probably a bit restrictive for the council, but it is an important issue going forward and one we have to be very mindful of. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. And with that, members, we're going to move on to 11.5. Over to you, Alison.
Thank you, Chair. This is just regarding the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust event, which is for the National Holocaust Memorial Day. The regional ceremony for Northern Ireland will be held on the 24th of January. The Vice Chair, is representing the Council at the event. There are places, though, or rather there is a waiting list being established for places as the event is fully subscribed. So if there is a desire for members to be put on that waiting list, we would certainly take those details this evening.
Okay, so Councillor Rennie representing the council. Others interested will go on a waiting list. Over to you, Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. I propose that we note the correspondence, and it's I noticed that they've broadened their horizons on this and have included other Holocaust incidents across the world, which is bringing it more up to date even further, and it shows just still the cruelty of one man to another, or one human to another. So propose to note, and it's interesting that it's already oversubscribed and there's a waiting list.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. I'll second Councillor McCloughley's noting of the correspondence.
Thanks for that. Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm just, I recall in the old Fermanagh District Council that there was a Holocaust memorial event in Enniskillen and just below here, as far as I remember. And I'm just wondering why we can't do something ourselves to do it, around, it's a worthwhile thing to do anywhere. And in light of recent developments, I think in our society, we've seen a growing confidence among those who wish to divide people along, sectarian lines, and I mean that in the widest sense, or racial lines or ethnic lines. I think that there are lessons, as has been stated, from this event around all groups, and I think from my memory, when it happened in Fermanagh District Council, there were actually representatives both from the Jewish community and from the Islamic community attended that meeting, and they were making quite interesting, and also Northern Ireland Council for Ethnic Minorities were making points around, the need for integration and tolerance. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. We think it may be marked by this council, and we'll come to Alison in a wee minute. But just Councillor McAleer wishes to come in now.
Yes, Chair. Happy enough to second that. I think if it is a proposal coming forward, or if it is something that can be accommodated locally, I think it's obviously a hugely significant event and something that we should be welcoming and invite to, and an atrocity that has to be remembered. Just being mindful, I suppose, of a comment there from Councillor McCloughley. I'm not familiar with the charity or the organisation behind the event, so I'd checked out their website, and I note that there's some distinct lines drawn between what is being remembered or what can be remembered as part of this and what doesn't. There's a reference on the frequently asked questions section, what makes a genocide different from other wars, atrocities or conflicts. And I note that on the 9th of December 1948, the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide defined genocide as any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial or religious group, such as the killing of members of the group, serious bodily or mental harm to the members of the group, deliberately inflicting group conditions. There's a number of different things there, but on the website it lists places like Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia and Darfur. It doesn't, the striking one that's missing is Palestine, which doesn't appear anywhere on, and indeed is actually excluded on some of that. And given the recent election of an extremist right-wing government there, and moves at the minute even to ban the flying of the Palestinian flag, I think it's just a bit disappointing really that is not something that's been covered. I think anyone who's been paying attention related to recent actions of apartheid Israel at any stage over the past 75 years, but increasingly so since the election, can maybe draw their own conclusions as to the intent of the Israeli state, their own leaders' hate speech, their brutal actions and their stated arms aims. So that should put that maybe beyond doubt, but happy enough to support the proposal as is, Chair.
Okay. So,
Chair, just to confirm, we'll report back to Regeneration Community. It's certainly my understanding as part of our Good Relations Action Plan that we actually do, and we have consistently done, a Holocaust Memorial event. We certainly link in with the educational programme through local schools as well, but I think there are wider community events, but we'll report the detail of that through to you.
okay. So members, again, there's no points of disagreement here. Okay, Councillor Keenan?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, fully support Councillor O'Coffey's proposal for ourselves to host such an event. And as Emmett said, Palestine is something we should also remember when we're having that. Another thing came to my mind was actually the Holocaust in this country from the 1800s, but where millions of people were forced from their homes and their farms and left to starve, whilst thousands of tons of food was exported from the country. I think we can't forget our own history and the genocide that happened here. So I would like to think that would be included in our own events. I know there is events all over the country in October time, and I think that'd be maybe something we could also link in with as a council. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So, we've got agreement on the proposal, and there's going to be a report or a brought back to RNC about what is in existence at this time within this council area, good relations, etc., to mark the Holocaust. Other ideas coming forward as well, and that's all noted for now, isn't that right? Okay, agreed, members? Okay. 11.6, Alison?
Chair, this is just an item of correspondence in the other folder, and this follows on from the recently adopted motion by the Council regarding our work on the healthcare modelling. So this is a response from the GP Federation confirming their willingness to participate in an engagement event, obviously in the evening, and we're working on the programme for that now. Just to advise, Chair, we had already written to SPPG, also the Department of Health, also the Western Trust, also Public Health Agency. So a number of responses are outstanding, but they, I know, have received communication from the Chief Executive of PHA, who's keen to schedule a call just to confirm their input to that event, or those events rather. So recommending this for noting. We need to finalise the programme, but we do require the input of the health bodies before we can do so.
Okay. Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think I'd better declare an interest in this item as a member of the board of the Southwest GP Federation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. And I think Councillor Keenan, your hand may be up from the previous item. But with that, then, all I need is a proposer, and Councillor Thompson and Councillor McPhillips, seconder and proposer and seconder to note. Thank you for that. Okay, so we've completed the correspondence section of the meeting, section 11, item 11, and we're moving now into the notice of motion, which is item 12. And Councillor McAleer will have 5 minutes to propose. Councillor Donnelly, I think, is going next, isn't that right? Second, appropriately, 3 minutes. And then there'll be an opportunity for Councillor McAleer to sum up. Isn't that right? Okay. So we'll go straight away to the motion and over to yourself, Emmett.
You go, Margaret. Carlock, yeah. Obviously, this is a rescinding motion, so I take it as read that people understand what we're talking about. I'll start by thanking the councillors for supporting this rescinding motion, including those Omagh Town councillors who did so. I'm not going to dwell tonight overly on the damning specifics of the legal judgment handed down by the judge against Flintridge. The fact that they exceeded the proper use of explosives, and again, we haven't heard further comment from the PSNI in relation to this. The fact that this caused a serious collapse in the mine, including a 150-ton section of rock landing just 2 metres from an employee. The further collapse of a ramp and another employee having to escape out of a broken window of a vehicle to escape. The continued failings of the mine as an inrush of 860,000 litres of water into the tunnel within 60 minutes caused workers to flee for fear of drowning. that a major disaster was averted simply by good fortune, as there was a complete failure of management. Now, we did hear or read that no proper risk assessment had been carried out, and a document put forward by the company in the aftermath of the incident was described by investigators as worthless. We are all, or we should be all, aware of the history of this company. The last night I referenced the judgment of Justice Humphreys, who noted that it should be a matter of grave public concern that the mining works at this site have been characterised by repeated breaches of planning control. This, coupled with their reckless disregard for their own staff, never mind the health and safety of those people living or travelling close to the site, should really tell us all we need to know. Just prior to the last month's meeting, we received an obviously and rightly so worried piece of PR guff from this company, claiming to outline their best practice mining improvements at Cavanagh. The desperation was evident, but even reading through the nonsense they provided, they seem intent on downplaying or dismissing the seriousness of the legal findings against them. The judgment was damning, and ultimately that's what forms the basis of this motion. It is a permanent record. If Flintridge disagree, they can go to the Court of Appeal, and indeed perhaps it's telling that they have not done so to date, despite initially contesting the charges that were levied against them and that they were subsequently found guilty of. For all their clamour about now taking this seriously, what sanctions have senior management faced? How are some senior management still in post? Claims surrounding the recruitment of a team of senior mining professionals and the establishment of new safe systems of work don't reassure when this company can't even be bothered closing the gates to the mine site in the evenings. When this motion was brought previously, the disingenuous and indeed cowardly cover of surcharge was raised by those parties and councillors which have, during my time in council, always stood with the foreign mining firms at the expense of the local community. One councillor even confused himself, and perhaps others, by failing to differentiate between an active investigation and a legal prosecution. Be under no illusion, the die has been cast here, and this motion seeks to support the legal judgment handed down. To conclude, I return to Judge Humphreys' acknowledgement that in spite of the repeated breaches of planning control, his words, no enforcement action has been taken by the relevant authorities. When referencing the unlawful removal of 500,000 tonnes of rock from the site, he noted that the Ombudsman later found that the failure to take enforcement action had completely failed to protect the public interest. Completely failed to protect the public interest. Let us finally step up and protect the public interest. The judgment stated that it would seem that despite a well-known history of flouting planning requirements, first the department and now the council rely on complaints being raised by members of the public before considering whether or not to take enforcement action. As the saying goes, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Let's not bring any further shame on this council. Let's stand up. Let's waken up. Let's see what this toxic company and indeed what this toxic industry really is at. Let's put our local community's health, well-being and future first. And let's say no more to being fooled into thinking that this leopard has changed its spots. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor. And I'll go now to Councillor Stephen Donnelly. Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. I'll not require the 3 minutes because I think that at this stage the rationale for this motion is clear and indeed has been well laid out by Councillor McAleer there. Quite frankly, this comes back to a fundamental point, which is that the community in Cavanagh is sick, sore and tired of being shouted down by those in this chamber who refuse to even acknowledge that there is a problem. So much so that to the extent that months ago, that whenever we were considering a similar issue in connection with Flintridge, that one member of this chamber said that it was his understanding that there were no major issues with the operation of this company at the site. Now, Chair, I have spoken extensively for a number of years now about the many concerns that people in Cavanagh have had about the operation of this mine, not least the flagrant breaches that have been a consistent pattern of their behaviour over many years. But if that was not sufficient, this court ruling, with the implications that it has for health and safety, should be a wake-up call to every councillor in this chamber that we need to act and send a message that we actually do stand with the community in Cavanagh who are sick, sore and tired of being walked over by this kind of corporate aggression. And so, in that spirit, Chair, I would urge this council to reflect on the decision that was taken previously and to support this motion tonight and to stand with the people of Cavanagh in the face of this corporate aggression, which has been going on unchallenged for far too long. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. I go now to Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in on this. Well, obviously, we've heard the sort of repeated words tonight, and we hear this word quite often, toxic. We still haven't got the full meanings of what actually is toxic, but that's neither here or there at this time. Unfortunately, Councillor McAleer mentioned individuals who had been put at risk on the Flint Ridge mine. Unfortunately, individuals in all aspects of work, on outdoor work and what have you, are subject to these potential accidents, and it leads to fatalities. Our position on the motion has not changed since it was brought before the Council in December and ultimately defeated by this Council. It's unfortunate and questionable that Councillor McAleer and Councillor Donnelly feel the need to use this mechanism to rehash a motion that has already been defeated by the Council. To reiterate what was said in December, there was an investigation carried out by the Health and Social Executive of Northern Ireland into the operations at Galantis. The findings of the investigation were brought before the Crown Court and a subsequent ruling was made, and we expected the company to abide by that ruling. Councillor McAleer is effectively creating a very dangerous precedent that any company in this council area that is subject to an HSE investigation and court case, then that the council should act as an additional arbitrator. It is a highly illogical position to take. I believe in due process and respect the outcome of the HSE investigation and Crown Court findings. It is unfortunate that others do not. I am hugely concerned about the potential legal exposure this motion could have on this council. It is yet another legal cul-de-sac that Councillor McAleer and Councillor Donnelly are leading us down. I would have thought that lessons would have been learned by now, but clearly not. As a group, we will not be supporting this, and if there's a vote, we call for a recorded vote. And I also see Philip's on tonight, and certainly we would welcome any legal information that Philip can give us in the direction which this motion would be taken as. Thank you, Chair.
So there aren't any other speakers indicating. So for a legal input, Alison, what course of action would we need to take?
Yes, Chair, if legal advice is being sought, that would be done in committee, so we would require a proposer and seconder to go into committee for that purpose.
Okay, for the purpose of legal advice, Councillor Robinson, Councillor Irvine, proposed and seconded. And that's agreed, members, that we go into committee into confidential matters to deal with legal advice. So we'll just pause. Okay, thanks very much. Go now to the Chief Executive to give a summary of what happened in confidential matters.
Thank you, Chair. Well, just to advise, while in confidential matters, the councillors seek legal advice in relation to queries that members had in relation to the motion before, and also the submission of the requisite number of signatures of support for the motion.
Okay. Proposer and seconder to note, Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Crawford. Thank you. Proposed and seconded to note. Okay. So, that's the stage we're at in the debate now. As we go to the proposer for summing up, Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, and thanks to those that participated. I want to thank Councillor Donnelly first of all, as again highlighting the fact that he's a local resident as well as being a local representative. I think maybe it would be incumbent that we do listen to him as opposed to someone who lives half an hour or 20 miles away from the actual site. I do have to query why it's constantly the same individuals, the same parties who think they know better than the local communities affected that are constantly coming in to toe the line of these toxic gold mining companies. It's puzzling to me. I don't know if parties or individuals are being influenced that they're bringing forward such proposals. I don't understand where that's coming from. How some councillors can claim to know better than individuals who live and reside and have been elected.
Might be better not to play ad hominem in this one. You know, just stick to the subject matter.
Well, Chair, I have.
Because otherwise we're going to get into dicey territory.
I have requested a freedom of information request along those lines, Chair. But
yep.
Just to clarify, is Councillor McAleer suggesting that councillors only from a certain DEA should vote on certain things? I'm confused in what he's saying. So if something is relevant to Bruipera, will he not vote on it anymore? Just to clarify it.
Okay. Right. I'll maybe stop taking interventions. You do have the floor, Councillor McAleer, but just stay on the straight path if you can. Okay? Okay.
Thanks, Chair. No, I'm more than happy to answer that question. Obviously, I would be voting on that, but I think it's incumbent that the local DEA representatives would be the ones that would probably toe the line and lead by example. I'm sure Councillor Green wouldn't appreciate me coming in and telling him something contrary to what he and the local people in his area would know. But I've constantly followed that logic, Chair, that the local representatives are best placed to explain the difficulties or explain the factors and the problems facing their areas, and that goes across the board. I like this idea again that workers should just suck it up and learn to live with the risk of the industry that they work in. It's a risky business, so deal with it. Again, what sort of an attitude is that for an elected representative? You know, we're talking previously about problems in the hospitality industry. I'm not going to dwell on it.
Just final minute, Emmett,
Yeah,
just to conclude.
Chair,
Thank
it's nonsensical arguments that have come forward to try and defeat this again tonight, from the sublime to the ridiculous, again, verging on how many people now support this motion. It's included, it's been confirmed as being competent, and again, I would like to think that the council and the councillors would put the health and safety and well-being of the local people of Cavanagh ahead of mining interests, that they would put the well-being of the environment and biodiversity in that area ahead of anything else. So thank you, Chair, and hopefully councillors can support the motion.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McAleer. So, members, I do anticipate division on this. Okay, and a recorded vote has been requested. So, obviously, we're in the business now of setting up a vote. Okay. And we're voting on the motion as presented in item 12 in your agenda papers. So it'll not take us long to set up the vote, I'm sure.
If you could just, sorry, if I could just ask for advice for members of the planning committee. The no voting button is the clear one at the end, is that correct? Could I just double check?
Right. Peter, we're asking you to confirm something here. no voting button. Is Tommy's seeking guidance, is that one at the end there, the no voting button? I think that's it. Okay.
Is this advice how to, which way to vote?
Against, says yes. X.
There's no voting button today. Just here in the chamber.
Not sure. Just take a wee minute to get this right. Wait, sorry, Tommy.
Yeah, again, Chair, as clarification, having declared interest as members of the planning committee is just to know, do we participate in the vote as a recorded vote, or do we press the end one, the blank one, or the X? The not voting option is the blank one. Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Chief Executive and Chair. Margaret?
Okay. So you got that, didn't you? That the not voting button is the blank button to the right of the X. That's what we're advised, isn't that right? So okay. Okay. So there's no confusion in the room. Rosemary, you happy enough? Something's cut across my screen here. All right. Well, right. Okay, so when are we starting this vote? Or you can proceed to vote now. Please proceed to vote now. Okay. When you press that extreme right one, nothing happens, so that's okay. Right. I'm in the same boat as you there, Mary.
You don't just close those screens.
Don't close them.
Just we need to save it.
Oh, sorry, aye. Wait.
Still have to wait for some members to. Oh yeah.
Don't close that screen.
Chair, apologies. Has the polling closed?
Yes.
The voting has closed.
Okay, no, it's perfect. I just wasn't sure. Thank you. Cormac.
And I can't vote.
It's tied and therefore there's no decision. So that.
You want to read out the result?
Okay, Chair. So we have 11 votes for, 11 votes against, and 11 not voting. My understanding, Chair, is you have not voted. Is there's no casting vote, therefore it's a tie, so therefore no decision has been taken. So therefore the motion does not proceed.
Okay. So I can close this down and move on. Okay, members, we're moving on now till item 13 on the agenda. Any urgent and relevant business? There isn't any. Okay. Okay. So now we're going into part 2 of the meeting, confidential business. So I'll take a proposer from Councillor Robinson and Councillor Thompson, the quickest to move there, to go into confidential matters. So Okay, ready to go?
Okay, Chair, thank you. While in committee, the council confirmed and signed the confidential minutes of the council meeting held on the 6th of December. Excuse me, there were no matters arising from those minutes. And the confidential minutes from the various committees as follows were agreed. The reconvened planning committee meeting held on the 21st of November, environmental services on the 7th of December, regeneration and community held on the 13th of December, policy and resources held on the 14th of December, and the planning committee held on the 15th of December. And in relation to the planning committee, the council agreed with the recommendations coming from the planning committee, Chair.
Okay. Okay, proposers, Councillor Coyle and Councillor Irvine, proposed and seconded to note the report. Okay, and that concludes our business. The meeting has now ended. Thought it was quarter to 9.